So tonight we're going to be covering keeping the team on track part 2. Our 2 areas that we're going to be looking at are addressing and removing impediments, obstacles, and blockers. I'll cover that first, and then Chris is going to take the second topic, which is managing conflict. Okay. Right. So tonight we're going to get started with addressing and removing impediments, obstacles, and blockers. And so throughout the project, you know there's going to be impediments, obstacles, and constraints that are going to slow down or block the team's progress for the project's objectives. And so we've got to have a plan in place for this. This interference can range from being minor, it can be catastrophic. The team might be affected anywhere from just simply being inconvenienced or actually being outright stopped. Any hindrance on the project team or on any member of the team has the effect of reducing productivity, and it has the ability for the project to possibly not meet its objectives, and particularly in terms of time. We all know we've had situations where most issues end up impacting the schedule. Any actions that the project manager can take to address and remove these conditions or causes restricting the team's productivity ends up helping the team, to end up producing the value, which is the intent of the project. Okay. So let's start out talking about the enablers, the things that are going to help us to remove these impediments and obstacles and blockers. Right. The first thing that we'll want to do, of course, is we're going to determine what those critical impediments, obstacles, and blockers are for the team. Next, we're going to prioritize them. Then we're going to identify and implement the solutions to remove any of these identified impediments, obstacles, and blockers. And then lastly, we're going to reassess continually to ensure that the impediments and the blockers have been successfully addressed, and to determine if any new impediments, obstacles, or blockers have come up. Okay. The deliverables and tools that you see listed here are relevant to the enablers addressed in this topic. In this session tonight, we'll specifically address the daily stand-up, risk reviews, and the backlog assessments as tools. The remainder of the items listed here may be covered in detail in other sections of the course. In fact, you've probably already seen some of these already. Projects can be blocked for a number of reasons. Project team members can encounter many obstacles that obstruct or slow down their efforts. The type of impediments vary greatly depending on your industry, your stakeholders, the project and the business environment, and the project itself. An impediment is simply something that prevents the team from achieving its objectives. The terms can be synonymous, but generally speaking, impediments reference situations, conditions, and actions that slow down or hinder the progress. For example, the team cannot come to a decision on a location for saving project documentation. Obstacles, on the other hand, refer to barriers that should be able to be removed, avoided, or overcome with some effort or strategy. For example, the construction crew is unable to arrive at their work site before the permits are signed. Okay? And then blockers, they refer to events or conditions that cause stoppages in the work or any further advancement. An example would be the company has halted the use of any products in a certain firm until a new contract is signed. The number and weight of impediments may vary throughout a project, and this variation may even fluctuate throughout the day. The team identifies the impediments and brings them to the attention of others on the team. The project manager assists in facilitating the evaluation of the impediments and how they could or could not impact the team's ability to deliver the desired value. Based on those judgments, the team figures out how to address the impediments. Often the resolution, or occasionally the research, is performed by the project manager to enable the team to focus on more meaningful, productive tasks. Over time, the obstacles might become more cumbersome or less cumbersome. The blockage may become unblocked, but due to the dynamic nature of projects, the impediments, obstacles, and blockers, as well as any effort undertaken by you and the team to address them, they must be reassessed continually. That's a key concept right there. You got to reassess continually throughout the project. This also includes recognizing new impediments, such as those that emerged because of the actions and efforts used to address other impediments. And I'm sure everybody's got probably a great example of how maybe you addressed one issue that ended up maybe creating another one that now needed to be addressed. Impediments and obstacles may block work or planned efforts from moving forward. As a result, the product backlog, scheduled activities, and other lists of work items must be assessed in reference to the hindrances. Evaluating the impediments against the pending work forces the team and the business stakeholders to assess the backlogged work in terms of value and priority. Those key concepts as well. Backlog assessment and refinement can also result in the identification of alternatives to overcome or avoid the risk. In some instances, it can result in the work item blockage actually being removed altogether. Let's talk a little bit about the daily stand-up. This is one practice or tool that can assist with uncovering or determining the impediments impacting the team in a timely manner. It's also referred to as the Daily Scrum, okay? So a daily stand-up, in short, is a 15-minute meeting in which the complete team gets together for a quick status update while standing in a circle. Ideally, the stand-up meetings should be conducted at the start of working hours and in the presence of all team members are involved in the sprint is mandatory. During the meeting, these are typically the questions that are answered in that meeting. What's been done since the last meeting? What needs to be done before the next meeting? And what does anyone need any help with? Okay. So that's one tool that we can use to assess, okay, and find our impediments and blockages. Tracking impediments. When product teams track impediments as they are raised, addressed, and resolved, then communication and proper oversight are increased. And there are various ways to track impediments, including using impediments task boards or software. Impediment task board, like the example I have here, I went out and found a picture of one just so you have a visual. But impediment task boards can be as simple as sticky notes denoting impediments, potential causes, responsibilities, and status posted on the whiteboard or a wall near the project team's co-location, or it can be something like sophisticated software. If you're you got maybe a very sophisticated project, you may want to have software that captures in greater detail, and then also has some communication features. It can send certain types of issues, based off priority, make people aware of those particular issues. In whatever format that ends up working best for the team, the main thing to consider here is that the board must convey the status and the efforts associated with those identified impediments. Impediments may be due to or as a result of project risks or issues. Risks that are raised during the daily stand-up meetings, iteration reviews, and other meetings, as well as everyday conversations, are added to the risk list. A rigorous review of the project risks ensures that the risks are identified and they're documented. Newly identified and existing risks on the project risk list must be updated based on current knowledge and the situation. For the exam, you want to kind of think of the status meetings as team meetings in which the project manager can perform risk reviews and risk audits. Assessing and managing risks, I've already discussed that in more detail in the lesson titled Doing the Work. So if you need to go back and review risk identification and management, please go back and look back over that content. Again, that was called Doing the Work. Project managers serving as servant leaders aim to clear an unobstructed path for the project team so that they may contribute and deliver. Project managers want to optimize the workplace to be free of obstacles and other impediments. This extends from the physical team space to shielding the team from non-value activities. Removing distraction, randomization, and other confusion enables the project team to be more effective and efficient. Project managers can take on most of the burden of addressing and removing impediments so the team can do their best work on the project to achieve its desired objectives. I know in my work in software development and so forth in the past, that's a good bit of what my role was to make sure that the development team could actually, be coding versus having to work through any issues, whether that was around requirements gathering and so forth, or requirements clarification. Those were my responsibility was to go in and try to get those impediments so that they could focus on the value of coding. Impediments, of course, they emerge from the internal project team, but they also will emerge from the external sources as well. And so here are some guidelines to consider, be familiar with when working with external stakeholders. First, discuss with the team to assess and evaluate the impediment, review efforts previously attempted or considered, discuss the impact and the solutions, relay the impediment to the external source, establish a single point of contact with the team, typically the project manager or person with the most subject matter knowledge, and then shield the rest of the team as appropriate so that they can focus on their work. Create an action plan and a schedule. So, just identifying issues is not enough. You're really going to put assign some responsibility or accountability to it, right, and the time for getting these issues resolved. Follow up and communicate regularly per the agreements, and then document the resolution and lessons learned for future reference. This is where your lessons learned capturing comes into place and referring, again, looking back at your assets, your workplace assets. Okay. And then when it comes to prioritizing impediments, obstacles, and blockers, what you see here are some guidelines to consider as well. We'll want to define the categories or the levels of prioritization appropriate for the team, project, and or the organization. Specific risk categories include but aren't limited to external, internal, technical, commercial, and unforeseeable. You can redefine these levels as needed. Anchor the priority levels with real examples. For example, a priority 1 issue is when the defect rate has reached X%. And by giving examples of what a priority 1 issue is compared to a priority 2 issue and so on, it'll help to reduce the number of fire drills and ensure that the highest priority issues are being addressed. We want to clarify the new and still open impediments. We want to review the impact or potential impact to the team and to the project objective. This will help to ensure that the issues are properly prioritized. We want to assign a priority to each impediment as a team or a selected subgroup based on connection to the impediment. There are a number of techniques that are suitable that you can use. Some of them are like fist to 5, T-shirt sizing, where the participants repurpose the T-shirt sizing estimation to the priorities. These are all just kind of coming up with ways to put maybe a numeric value on a particular issue. Unique naming, the team designs their own unique naming conventions for the scale that works best for their needs. I mean, I've always used red, yellow, green, but the team might be much more creative than I am. They have a tiger issue versus a kitten issue. I'm not sure. Planning poker. I had to kind of look up what planning poker was. I don't know if y'all have already heard that term yet, but basically what participants are doing here is, again, it's taking an estimating technique for priorities and then kind of converting it into using that same type of technique for assigning a priority. You can easily Google what is planning poker and find a much longer description of that. It is actually a technique used in Agile to be able to, again, come up with estimation, and it can be repurposed for this. Then we can communicate the priority levels in an easily accessible area, such as a software tool, an information radiator, shows the gradation of the effort or the issue. And you can also have communal message boards as well to be able to communicate. You'll begin creating action plans for the highest priority impediments, and then again, you're going to reassess continually to ensure that impediments, obstacles, and blockers for the team are being addressed. Okay? And so that covers this section. I know it's a very, very fast section, but again, very important for us to have a clear understanding of how we're going to address impediments, and hopefully you've seen some of the things that you need to be doing in order to make that happen. Let me stop there and open it up for any questions. All right. Well, Chris, I think it's on to you, or we can take a small break, but it seems a little early.
Yeah, it's early. I say we keep going.
Yes, I agree. All right, turn it over to you.
All right, thanks. All right, let me pull up and pick up where she left off. There you go. All right, Cindy, can you see?
Yes, I sure can.
All right. All right, so good evening, everyone. All right, so we're going to start talking about managing conflict. So when you work a project and you work with a variety of stakeholders, you're going to have conflicts. I think we all probably figure that out or have seen that firsthand, right? Conflict is inevitable in all of our projects, but conflict is natural, and also conflict can be a positive benefit to the project and the outcome if you manage it and you cultivate it correctly. So not so bad all the time. So enablers, we have interpret the source and stage of the conflict, analyze the conflict, the context for the conflict, evaluate, recommend, reconcile, and track effectiveness, identify the root cause and the misunderstanding, and investigate potential misunderstandings before they happen. All right, so deliverables, we have updated working agreement is probably going to be an output coming out of this, and we also have an updated RACI matrix. I mentioned RACI last Wednesday, but I really didn't dig into it. But I grabbed this graphic from the internet and popped it into here so we could see what RACI was and what it stands for. But basically, it's a responsibility assignment matrix. It's also known as RACI. It describes the participation by various roles in completing tasks or deliverables for a project or a business process. And RACI obviously is an acronym. It's derived from 4 key responsibilities most typically used, and that is responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. And it's used for clarifying and defining roles and responsibilities across cross-functional departmental projects and different processes. So I think you've probably seen the definition of RACI prior to tonight, so hopefully this is not new information for you. All right, so again, a deliverable is an output, would be updated RACI matrix as we come out of this and we go through our conflict management. Once you get to the other side, you figure some things out, you have some new rules, you have some new approaches, and you document them in the RACI matrix. So the tools we're going to talk about tonight, we got conflict management theory, we got change management theory, we got conflict management models, and then conflict resolution strategies, emotional intelligence, active listening, and empathy. So we'll touch on all those over the next several slides. All right, so managing conflict is the responsibility of all stakeholders, not just the project manager, and that's important. However, the direction and handling of the conflict is heavily influenced by the project manager. As a PM, you weigh in and you will guide your team through this. And as a PM, your interpersonal, your team skills are going to play a major role in how you approach this, and it will ensure that you have positive results and aspects of the conflict rather than negative aspects that come out of it. You have skills that we'll talk about, such as empathy and emotional intelligence, again, are primary examples that we're going to be utilizing. Now, in agile projects, the project manager may assist in facilitating conflict resolution sessions, or the team is empowered to resolve conflicts as they best see fit. So it's kind of like you leave it up to the team to work through it. And we also have this concept of a servant leader, right? So as a PM and you're a servant leader in that role, you can assist in the removal of the impediments, which we just talked about, or the sources of conflict to support the team's performance. But you let them kind of learn and work through things on their own, and you just clear those impediments and clear the way for them, basically, is what you're trying to do. All right, causes of conflict. So conflict arises in most group and different working situations. The causes include competition, differences in objectives, values, and perceptions, disagreements about role requirements, work activities, and individual approaches, and then lastly, communication breakdowns. So as a PM, you should be aware of certain characteristics of conflict that will help you effectively handle the conflict if and when it does arise. understand that conflict is natural, and it enforces the need for exploring alternatives as a result of it. Openness about this situation and opinions, you can resolve the conflict when you go through this. Your focus should be on the issues, not the individuals. We'll talk a little bit more about that. It should be on the present situation and not on the past. This is true in life, right? If you're going to resolve conflict between kids, siblings, anybody, right? Peers, focus on the issue, not on the individual, and focus on the present, not on the past. So it's always good advice. So conflict management, let's jump into this. So conflict management is the application of one or more strategies for dealing with disagreements that may be detrimental to team performance. Effective conflict management can lead to improved understanding, performance, productivity. Now, conversely, ineffective or non-existent conflict management can lead to destructive behavior, animosity, poor performance, reduced productivity. All of these threaten successful completion of the project. There are certain conflict resolution methods, and the need to follow a particular method includes the intensity and the importance of the conflict, the time given to resolve the conflict, the positions of the conflicting parties, and the motivations to resolve the conflicts on a short-term or long-term basis. All right, and the last bullet you'll see is use various conflict resolution methods. In a couple slides, we're going to be sharing some different approaches. So we'll get to that in just 1 second. All right, let's talk change management theory. Any change, whether it's a small change like rescheduling or a large change that we sometimes go through here at AT&T, like a major organizational change, these changes can cause conflict. And managing these changes in projects and organizations may require different strategies depending on the circumstances, the people involved, the timing, etc. You might find that the organizational change management model, such as Mckenzie's 7S model and Kotter's theory, to be useful for handling organizational change. I've added a couple graphics here so we have a depiction of what the Mckenzie 7S model is. You'll see they all start with S and there's 7 of them, so that's an easy one to help you remember this for the exam. And then the Kotter's theory, you'll see it's 8 steps starting at increased urgency. So I pulled some information around Mckenzie's and Kotter. So the Mckenzie 7S model refers to a tool that analyzes a company's organizational design. The goal of this Mckenzie 7S model is to depict how effectiveness can be achieved in an organization through the interactions of 7 key elements. Those are structure, strategy, skill, system, shared values, style, and staff. And the focus of this Mckenzie 7S model lies in the interconnectedness of the elements that are categorized by either a soft S or hard S. And that's implying like a domino effect exists when you change one element in order to maintain an effective balance. Placing the shared values as the center, you'll see shared values right in the middle of it. That reflects the crucial nature of the impact of changes in the values on all other elements. So that's just a little bit about Mckenzie 7S model, and I'm sure you can find more information on that. Now, moving to Kotter's theory, it was actually John Kotter is his name. He was a Harvard Business School professor, and he was a renowned change expert, maybe still is. In his book, Leading Change, he introduced an 8-step model of change, which he developed on the basis of research of 100 different organizations that were going through a process of change. And Kotter suggests that for change to be successful, 75% of a company's management needs to buy into the change. In other words, you have to really work hard on step number 1, which is increased urgency. And you have to spend significant time and energy building this urgency before you move on to step 2, 3, and 4. And so that's Kotter's theory around change. Now, it's just as important to have a robust theory and an approach to change management when you're supporting business goals and the needs of a larger organization as it is with other practice areas of professional project management. Now, embracing change as a strategy, this can help organizations balance investment and risk. It helps them become more flexible, and it ensures that they reap the benefits of any project to get the maximum ROI. Change management is an essential organizational capability, and it's a significant professional practice in its own right. So it's a good thing to learn and a good thing to master. Okay. Next, let's talk about conflict management approaches. I hinted that we're going to see some of these different ones out here in a couple slides, and here they are. So you'll see that there's actually 5 different approaches that they have listed, and you'll find this in the PMBOK Guide 6th edition, which you're reading. These are different approaches for handling conflicts. Each is effective in different circumstances. So let's start off with withdraw and avoid is the first one. So you'll see the 2 bullets: retreating from an actual or potential conflict situation, that's withdrawing; postponing the issue to be better prepared or to be resolved by others, and that's the avoid piece of it. So you can use this in situations where it deems most appropriate. The second is smooth and accommodate, emphasizing areas of agreement rather than areas of difference. And then conceding your position to the needs of others to maintain harmony and relationships. So again, smooth and accommodate, conflict management. The third one is compromise and reconcile, searching for solutions that bring some degree of satisfaction to all parties. And then temporarily or partially resolving the conflict through compromise. And then force and direct, pursuing your viewpoint at the expense of others, and offering only win-lose situations, usually enforced through a power position to resolve an emergency. So if you have a conflict and the building's on fire, you need to get people out of the building. A force direct approach probably is the best option on this one. You have collaborate and problem solve, so incorporating multiple viewpoints and insights from differing perspectives, and enabling cooperative attitudes and open dialogue to reach consensus and commitment. So again, I think for the exam, I would just make sure I understand what these are called, and probably just have a good understanding that you can read back in your own mind on these bullet points that are listed here.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
So, when stepping back for a second, we had talked about what was it? The Mckenzie and what was the other one? Mckenzie and Cotter's. How
Yes.
much on the exam are those 2 models going to be on there, or is that an additional mention? Because going through it and everything, I didn't know if it got in depth on that as you did.
Yeah, I just went in a little bit more just to have a basic understanding of what these models were.
Okay.
I would follow the guidelines from the PMBOK guide, meaning that whatever level they dive into these, that you have an understanding of at that same level. So
Okay.
if it's just a skim high level, then that's an indicator that you probably don't need to dig deep into this. I called a couple graphics just to give us a visual and just some words to explain it. That's all.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. All right. And then we have team charter. So one technique that supports a productive and collaborative project environment is documenting a team charter. A team charter is defined as a document that records the team's values, agreements, operating guidelines, as well as establishing clear expectations regarding acceptable behavior by project team members. So it's kind of like the rules of operation, the rules of the road. The team develops the charter. It's how you operate, all right? Having a working agreement, this team charter, it articulates the team values how the team works together, how they make decisions, enables a team to have ground rules and aid on collegial conflict resolution. So it even includes information around conflicts. The format and the detail of the team charter varies based on the expectations and the culture of the team. So you decide if you're going to use a team charter, how expansive it is, or what level you dig down into it. And then in the context of managing conflict, it's important to update the working agreements with the team charter, or like the team charter and the other team documents, to provide guidance for how the team should move forward. So we talked about the outputs or the deliverables up at the front of this section, and producing documents or updating documents like the team charter. If you go through conflict, you learn something new about how the team is operating, you loop back around, you make your updates, so the next time it happens, you have better expectations for everyone. Everybody's back on the same page. And guess what? That was it. Tonight, we knew this was going to be a short class. I guess we didn't really know it was going to be this short.
Short,
this is the content that was out. Yeah, that's all the content that they have outlined for us tonight. So we got a lot of time. First of all, you're going to get out early tonight, which I'm sure nobody's going to cry over, right? But we do have plenty of time for questions. If anybody has questions about what we just covered, or questions in general about advice on studying for the exam, or anything you want, let's open it up. Cindy, do you have any advice on studying for the exam that we haven't already talked about?
Well, probably not. I mean, I just, the read a book has really helped me immensely. And then, of course, just doing as many of those questions or those test question banks as you possibly can, and do them over and over again.
Yep, I agree. I did that, and the read a book was my saving grace, more so than the PMBOK guide itself. I leaned heavily on the read a book as I got closer to it.
So
also go ahead.
Yeah, so you talk about the read a book. So I have, and I'm sure everybody else here has, the 10th edition. And I also have the 8th edition. And as I'm going through them, so I've heard of differing opinions about it. How confident are you? I mean, it's a ridiculous question, but how confident were you based off of doing the Rita's book? Did you do the 8th edition? I mean, I guess not the 10th edition. Would you recommend one or the other, both, or the 10 is fine?
I would go, personally, I would go with whatever the latest edition is, because I think that will be most closely aligned to the exam that you take. Yeah, so I got the latest Rita Mulcahy book that was available at the time, and I leaned on it. And you made me laugh a little bit. Your question was, how confident were you going into the exam, I think is what you were going to say.
Kind of.
Yeah. You can prepare, and then I'll be honest with you, when you get into the exam, you start answering questions, and you realize that a lot of the questions are kind of linked or similar. You see a pattern, and then you run across, if it happens to you, maybe not, but it happened to me a couple different times in the exam, is you run across a question that you say, hey, I wonder if I answered this one incorrect. I wondered if I answered all the other ones that were linked to this incorrectly. And you get a little panic because you're like, if I messed up this, then I might have messed up 10 questions in a batch by accident. You can't let yourself get into that situation. You got to keep moving forward, and and hope that you're answering them correctly, right? All you can do is fall back on what you've learned. And I don't know if they still do this in the exams, but where they'll give you, they don't give you time, but they'll give you a piece of paper, and they'll give you a pencil, and you have, you can do whatever you want with that. And what I was recommended to me, and what I did was I took the first 10 minutes of the exam time, and they call it brain dump, as what people would call it when I was taking it, where you just sit there and write down your formulas for EVM. You write down anything that you want to get out of your mind that you don't want to use brain power to try to remember while you're taking the exam. To me, that was helpful. to get that all out and get it into a paper, make it into a visual. And I worked on that brain dump a couple times before the exam of what would I do with just a piece of paper? How would I fill it up? And I limited myself to the first 10 minutes, and then I jumped right into the questions and started going along the line of the questions.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What else? Questions?
Hey, Chris, this is Will Gunner.
Hey, Will.
I took the test in 2007, so it's been some time for me. But is there still a school of thought out there today that says that, you know, of course, like others have mentioned on the call here, take as many practice exams as you possibly can. There used to be a rule of thumb that once you start consistently scoring above 80% on every test that you take on your own, that should give you some element of confidence that you're ready. You're ready, right? Don't second guess yourself. You've done the work. The Rita book was significant even 15 years ago as well, by the way. But once you start scoring above 80%, I guess I don't know what that rule of thumb is now, but it helped me have more confidence going into the test after completing all the practice exams.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up. I did the Exam Wizard, which was an online wizard. That I think we still might be using that, but I would do it on my iPad, and I would do just little bits, and it would track how you did in the group of questions, and it would show your level of getting them right with, averaged. And so you could go look at different sections, and you could see where you need to work on, and you would just focus on that and do exam after exam after exam. And some of them, like I said, would take 5 minutes or like 10 questions. You could just knock them out between your conference calls at work or something. I don't know. And I did use that as a gauge where I saw that my scores were average lower in certain categories. I would focus on those until I could get that average up. And whether or not it truly makes you prepared without any issues, it gives you that level of confidence that we all need. All right. What else?
Hey, Chris, does it make sense to go use the time, a little bit of the time, not all of it, but a little bit of the time to go through some of the activities that are in the student guide for these sections?
We can, though. The problem is that we didn't prepare for that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd be fumbling through it, to be honest with you. We wouldn't be able to guide you through it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm one of the mentors, so I'm just trying to see if there's a way to get some more out of this the time. Crystal, what was, was it Crystal or was it, there was on my team, somebody mentioned one, or was it Lindsay? Was it you that mentioned there was another thing that, an exam study guide that was mentioned on some of the chat rooms and things?
It was the PMP Prepcast.
Yeah, PMP Prepcast, and that one's apparently getting some good reviews from people. And so I looked at it. It's $150, but it's several thousand questions available online and practice simulations and things. So, that might be worth your time. The current Rita book, you definitely want to get either the Rita or the Andy Crow. They're going to have. They've been working with PMI since last year to get ready to for this test, just as much as PMI is, because they both make money off of this, and that's how they make money. They can't release a new book. Rita and Andy can't release a new book without saying we expect our people who read this, the people who are customers, to pass that test. So they have an inside track on a lot of the information that's in the test. And, they have a way of presenting, both of them have a way of presenting it in a way that stays compliant with their relationship with PMI, but at the same time gives their customers the ability to go and take and pass that test. So you really, if you're questioning which one you should get, go see if you can find some sample chapters of both and see which one speaks to you. That's what I did. The Andy Crow book didn't speak to me when I read it, got it 2 years ago, but the Rita did. So that's the one I ended up buying. But I know several people who love the Andy Crow book. So it's just different flavors of how to learn.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah. We don't mean to throw shade on the Andy Crow book because just as many people find that to be equally good. We just happen to go down the path of the Rita Mulcahy personally.
Yeah, and I felt I was ready to go take the test when I was hitting 80% on the exam wizard, and I downloaded an app that lets you that at the time would ask you questions, and it wouldn't let you go to the next process group until you'd scored over an 80% on each of the tests on the process. So, and I breezed through that very quickly, and this was very late in the study game. So I felt like that was the point where really after that point I was just drilling on the brain dump.
Sean, another thing I found helpful was study buddy, just squaring off with one other person at some point where you just kind of spend a lot of time talk, kind of like either it's memorizing and kind of reading back or explaining why this is before this or why you do this. Just making sense of it all and saying it out loud helped me internalize it and helped me understand it. And, we'd reciprocate, right? I'd listen and let the other person kind of explain it to me. Then I would explain it to them and they'd listen. We'd shoot each other with questions. We would try to show that, how things are progressed on the project. Everything that you learn in the PMBOK guide, it helps make sense of it if you say it out loud. That might be a learning style that works for me more than others, but I think it probably is pretty common.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another thing that helps is as you're going through the exam wizard or the Rita and looking at the questions, because a lot of the questions that you get in exam wizard are like, they're going to ask you straight out what SDI is, right? You're not necessarily going to get these scenarios, but when you take the test, you're going to get scenarios. And so try to picture these questions that you read in the exam wizard or in the books and try to frame those in your mind into a similar work situation that you had, right? Or a similar scenario that you had or that you could think of. And, if you get stuck on something, that's where having a study partner helps, right? Because you can say, well, I'm trying to figure out this question and what would be an example of that? Because that's the question you're going to get. You guys are going to get the question in the test. This is the scenario. You're going to be told, you're not going to be asked what the RACI chart means. You're going to be given some people and their roles, and you're going to be asked, some questions about their need to know on where they are in the need to know basis, right? And how you communicate with them, how you update them on the scenario, or you're going to get a scenario where somebody's going to change their position on the RACI chart based on the conditions that are going on in that scenario. So, and that's why it's really important that you read the questions too, because I know that there's some questions I probably missed just because I didn't read the question all the way through. So you got to read the question and really pick out the key element of that scenario question.
Any other questions from the group? All right. Well, what I'd recommend is, we were trying to think of ways we could use this time since this is a short class. I think maybe a good recommendation is you individually use this time to either further your understanding through reading of the book or the PMBOK guide. Don't let this free time go to waste. Use most of it studying and then give yourself a little free. I'll leave that up to you and how you want to do it. But that's what I would do at the time if it was up to me. Mm-hmm. But with that, we'll go ahead and we'll wrap it up. So guys, on behalf of Cindy and myself, we've enjoyed being with you for 3 classes in this session, and I wish you all the luck, and Cindy, I'll let you say something as well, but I wish you all the luck on your exams. I hope everybody passes it the first time, and then you'll be PMP certified, and getting the PDUs is so much easier than studying for your test for the first time. So you'll see what we're talking about. But good luck to you all. And Cindy?
Yeah, good luck, I know everybody will do really well. Just put some time into it. Again, the secret to my success on it was that study buddy, had a good friend, colleague. He wanted to get it done, and we made a plan for it, getting together every week. I mean, we missed some, but pretty much every week we got together. We had a topic to talk about. We always practiced our brain dump on the board. We got up and whiteboarded it. We made sure we knew exactly what we were going to put down on that white piece of paper and practiced it, and then doing those exam questions. And if you'll do that, I think you'll be just fine. It is a tough test. And when you get in there and you get through it, you'll know you've accomplished a tough test. But I always tell everybody, if I can do it, I know y'all can do it too. So good luck with it, and I know you'll make it. It's a pleasure.
Right. Thanks, Cindy. It was fun. All right, guys. Everybody have a great night. We'll talk to you again.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.